You're not broken. You're just hurt. I want you to sit with that for a second, because right now, I know it doesn't feel that way. It feels like your world has collapsed. Like everything you thought you could rely on, everything that felt safe, beautiful, promising, has been ripped out from under you. And when you're in the middle of that storm, it's hard not to think, maybe it's me. Maybe I wasn't enough. But it's not you. It's pain. That's what this is. Heartbreak is pain, not identity. And the biggest lie we start to believe in heartbreak is that the pain defines us, that it somehow rewrites who we are or erases all the beautiful parts we once believed in. But the truth is, you're still all those things. You're still worthy. You're still lovable. You're still someone with so much to give. The pain you're feeling isn't proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that you cared deeply, that you were brave enough to open your heart. And that's something to honor, not something to regret. I think sometimes we confuse pain with punishment. We think, if I'm feeling this low, I must have done something to deserve it. But the universe isn't punishing you. Love isn't punishing you. What's happening is part of what it means to love and lose. And yes, it hurts. It really hurts. But it doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean your love was wrong or foolish or wasted. Hurt doesn't mean broken. And I want you to stop telling yourself that it does. Because what happens next, how you move forward, how you rebuild, that depends entirely on whether you see yourself as broken or simply bruised. If you see yourself as broken, you'll carry this pain into everything. You'll start believing no one will ever truly love you again, that you'll never feel that connection again, that you're somehow less now than you were before. But if you can start to shift that lens even slightly, you'll begin to see something powerful. You've been shaken, not shattered. Look, you're allowed to mourn. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to have days where you don't want to get out of bed, where your chest physically hurts, and your mind keeps replaying the same moments over and over. That's part of the process. That's part of being human. But don't let those moments convince you that this is your forever. Your heartbreak is a chapter. It's not the whole book. And the fact that you're hurting right now is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you're still open, that you have the capacity to feel, to care, to connect. That's not a weakness. That's your superpower. And I know it doesn't feel like a superpower right now. It feels like a curse, like the very thing that made you such a good partner. Your love, your loyalty, your hope was the same thing that left you shattered. But let me tell you this, the love you gave didn't disappear. The energy you invested, the affection you shared, it wasn't wasted. Just because someone couldn't meet you at your level doesn't mean your level is too high. It means they weren't ready to rise. And that is not your fault. What's happening now is not about being broken. It's about grieving. It's about adjusting. It's about learning how to live in a new version of reality. One you didn't choose, one you didn't plan for, and that takes time. But the more you remind yourself that this pain doesn't define you, the easier it becomes to start putting one foot in front of the other, to breathe again, to hope again, to realize that your best days didn't leave with them. They're still out there. You know, we talk a lot about healing, but healing isn't about never feeling sad again. It's not about pretending it didn't matter. It's about remembering who you were before the pain and realizing you still are that person. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it feels like the last thing you want to do. because that's when the real growth happens. Not when everything is easy, but when you're struggling and still choose to believe in your worth. There's a version of you on the other side of this that is stronger, wiser, and more resilient. A version of you that looks back at this moment and says, wow, I really thought I wouldn't get through that. But I did, and you will. You're already doing it. Every time you resist the urge to send that text, every time you take care of your body, even when your heart feels heavy, every time you choose to believe in a future that feels impossible right now, you're already healing. You're already becoming more whole. So no, you're not broken. You're just hurt. And hurt heals. Hurt is part of the process. Let it teach you. Let it open you. Let it shape you. But don't let it define you. Because the moment you stop telling yourself that you're broken is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. You didn't lose the one. You lost someone who wasn't meant to stay. I know that's hard to hear, especially when you're sitting in the aftermath of it all, trying to piece together what went wrong, wondering if it was something you did or something you didn't do. There's this voice in your head that keeps whispering, what if I just tried a little harder? What if I had said the right thing or been more patient or less emotional? And before you know it, you've rewritten the entire relationship into a fantasy where if you had just done one thing differently, it would have worked. But let's zoom out for a second. Heartbreak is tricky because it doesn't just grieve the person. It grieves the potential you saw in them. It mourns the future you imagined, not necessarily the reality you lived. That's why it hurts so much. You're not just missing them. You're missing the version of the relationship that existed in your mind. The late night talks, the one-day plans, the little hopes that kept you holding on even when things weren't right. Here's the truth though. If they were really the one, they'd still be here. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They'd be showing up in a way that makes you feel safe, seen, and valued. Not confused, not anxious, not like you're auditioning for love every day, and yet we hold on. Because deep down, we want to believe that our love was so special, so unique, that it should have been enough to make it work. But love, real lasting love, isn't about should. It's about showing up. It's about consistency. It's about two people choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So if they chose to walk away, or if they simply didn't give you the effort you deserved, you didn't lose your soulmate. You lost someone who couldn't or wouldn't love you in the way you needed. That's not your failure. That's just truth. You can't make someone ready. You can't convince someone to stay. And you absolutely can't force someone to give what they don't have or don't want to give. You know, sometimes we fall in love with potential. We see flashes of who they could be, who they might become, and we attach ourselves to that version of them instead of the one standing right in front of us. We see the sweet moments and ignore the patterns. We justify the hurt because of the history. And in doing so, we trade our peace for hope. But the longer you hold on to the version of them that only existed in your imagination, the longer you delay your own healing. Because the person you miss, the one you cry over at night, they weren't always that version. Maybe they were sometimes, maybe in the beginning, but love isn't just about the highs. It's about the middle, the Monday, the moments when you needed them and they didn't show up the way you needed them to. The fights they didn't try to resolve. The times you felt lonely, even though you were in a relationship. That's part of the story too. It's okay to acknowledge the good times. It's okay to miss them. But don't let nostalgia cloud your reality. Missing someone doesn't mean you belong with them. Missing someone just means your heart hasn't caught up to what your mind already knows. And here's what your mind knows. Deep down, if you really slow down and listen to that quieter voice underneath all the noise, you know they weren't right for you. Not in the way you need someone to be right. Maybe they were good to you at times, but love isn't about sometimes. It's about always. It's about presence, effort, consistency. It's about being with someone who doesn't just say they care, but proves it over and over again. You didn't lose the one. You lost someone who taught you something. Someone who was meant to be part of your journey, not the destination. That lesson, it's going to serve you more than you realize, because now you get to walk away with more self-respect, with a sharper sense of what you truly need, with a little more courage to say, that wasn't enough for me. And here's the most beautiful part. Your person, the one who truly sees you, who chooses you without hesitation, they're not going to require you to suffer in order to feel loved. They're not going to make you beg for clarity or question your worth. They're not going to make you feel like you're too much for wanting to be loved properly. So when you catch yourself saying, but I lost the love of my life, remind yourself, no, I lost someone who couldn't love me in the way I deserve. That's not a loss. That's a redirection. It's life clearing space. It's making room for something real, for someone real. And when that person comes, and they will, you'll realize why it never worked out with anyone else. You'll realize why it had to break your heart first. Because now you know how to value yourself in a way you never did before. Now you know what real love should feel like. And more importantly, now you're finally ready for it. You didn't lose the one, you just made space for someone better. You're probably feeling like your heart has been ripped out, like you've been exposed in a way no one else can see. And in those quiet moments, when the noise dies down and the distractions fade, you might catch yourself thinking, how could I have been so stupid? How did I let this happen to me? But let me stop you right there. The pain you're feeling right now, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're naive. And it certainly doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. The pain is a sign that you loved deeply, that you invested, that you showed up. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. Most people go through life never really letting someone in. They keep a wall up. They love halfway. They play games because they're scared of being the one who cares more. But you went all in. You were vulnerable. You allowed yourself to be seen, to be known, to be connected. That doesn't make you foolish. That makes you brave. And yeah, it hurts like hell when that love isn't returned in the way you needed. It hurts when someone doesn't protect your heart the way you tried to protect theirs. When the person you saw a future with suddenly becomes part of your past, it can feel like a part of you went with them. But here's what you have to remember. The fact that you're in pain doesn't mean you've failed. It means you were courageous enough to risk connection. You weren't playing safe. You were living, and the cost of real connection is real emotion. So many people numb themselves. They go through relationships half present, half committed, always holding back that final piece of themselves out of fear. But you didn't hold back. And that's beautiful. It means your capacity for love is real. It means you've got the goods. And someday when you meet someone who recognizes that, someone who's capable of showing up in the way you do, that depth of emotion is going to be the thing that sets your connection apart. But for now, the wound is raw. I know. It's tempting to wish you had never opened up in the first place, to wish you had played it cool or kept your guard up. But ask yourself this: is a life of guarded safety really better than a life of wholehearted experience? Because here's the truth: people who never get hurt are often the ones who never fully loved. And if you've been heartbroken, it means you've lived. It means you cared. It means you allowed someone into your inner world and you showed them parts of you that you don't show just anyone. That's sacred. That's not something to erase. That's something to honor. What you're feeling now, it's not weakness. It's not drama. It's not oversensitivity. It's evidence that you had the courage to try. And yeah, maybe it didn't work out, but relationships that end don't mean they were a waste of time. Sometimes the point of someone coming into your life isn't to stay forever. Sometimes it's to show you something, to awaken something in you, to help you learn what you actually want or what you'll never tolerate again. We tend to see love as success only when it lasts forever. But that's not always the measure of value. Sometimes the lesson is the value. Sometimes the experience is the preparation for something greater. And that heartbreak you're going through, it's part of that preparation. Let's flip the narrative. What if this pain is a gift in disguise? What if this ache in your chest is actually a sign that you are growing into someone even more emotionally intelligent, more self-aware, more selective, more ready for a truly aligned connection? And here's the part we don't talk about enough. Loving deeply teaches you how to love yourself deeply too, because you begin to realize that the love you gave away so freely, that compassion, that effort, that kindness, that energy, it all came from you. And if you can give that to someone else, you can start giving that to yourself. You don't need to wait around for someone to return it. You can be the source. Right now, it might feel like the love you gave went to waste, but it didn't, because it lives in you. It wasn't for nothing. And just because they couldn't hold it, just because they didn't reciprocate it, doesn't mean it lost its value. Love doesn't lose value just because it's not returned. It's still love. It's still real. And the world needs more of it, not less. So don't harden. Don't close off. Don't let this experience turn you into someone bitter or jaded. You're allowed to be wiser. You're allowed to raise your standards. You're allowed to learn the lessons. But don't lose the part of you that feels deeply. That part is gold. That part is rare. That part is what will lead you to a love that actually deserves you. Now, people say time heals everything, like that's supposed to be comforting. Maybe in some small way it is, but let's be honest, time alone doesn't heal. Time just passes. That ache in your chest, that heaviness in the pit of your stomach, that constant looping of what if and why did this happen, that doesn't just magically disappear because a few weeks or months have gone by. Time is a container. What matters is what you do inside that time, because healing doesn't come from the calendar. It comes from perspective. And here's the thing. In the beginning, everything feels foggy. You can't see the lesson. You're stuck in the emotion, in the loss, in the rejection. You might be replaying the last words, the final argument, the silence that came after. You're searching for a reason, a thread to pull that will help it all make sense. And when you can't find it, you start blaming yourself. You rewrite the story 100 times, each version harsher than the last. I should have said this. Why wasn't I enough? If I had just done that one thing differently. But the truth is, clarity doesn't come from beating yourself up. It comes when you step back far enough to see the whole picture, not just the highlights, not just the moments that made your heart skid, but the patterns, the inconsistencies. The way you started shrinking to make them comfortable. The little ways you lost yourself while trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. Perspective isn't denial. It's not pretending you're fine or forcing yourself to be grateful for pain before you're ready. It's honest reflection. It's recognizing that maybe this person wasn't capable of giving you the kind of love you needed, not because you're unworthy of it, but because they just weren't there. Maybe they didn't know how to handle someone who loves as deeply as you do. Or maybe they loved the idea of you more than the reality of what it takes to show up for someone consistently. And that hurts. I get it. But perspective helps you separate the rejection from your identity. It reminds you that someone's inability to love you isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their limitations. That shift is powerful. Because now, instead of obsessing over how to win them back, you begin asking, why did I feel like I had to convince someone to choose me in the first place? You begin to see that love isn't a performance. You don't need to be more charming, more attractive, more laid back, more anything to be worthy of someone's staying. You need someone who recognizes your worth without needing to be convinced. That clarity doesn't just ease the pain. It elevates your stat. And this is where the healing really begins. Because now, you're not just trying to feel better, you're growing. You're understanding what you will and won't tolerate again. You're setting new boundaries, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. You start filtering people differently, not just by how much you're attracted to them or how exciting they seem, but by how safe, consistent, and present they are. You see, perspective shifts the goalpost. Heartbreak initially makes you crave the familiar. You want them, or at least the feeling they gave you. But over time, with the right reflection, you stop chasing the past and start chasing a future. One where your happiness isn't dependent on someone else's attention. One where your peace isn't dictated by a message that may or may not come through. One where your love for someone else never exceeds the love you have for yourself. And yes, it still hurts sometimes. Healing isn't linear. You'll have moments where you feel like you're over it, and then suddenly you're crying at a song or walking past a place that brings everything back. That doesn't mean you're not healing. It means you are healing because you're allowing yourself to feel instead of numbing it out or pretending everything's fine. That takes courage. And let me say this, don't rush to find meaning in your pain. You don't have to figure it all out right now. Some lessons won't become clear until months, even years later. And that's okay. The important thing is that you stay open, that you stay curious, that you keep choosing to learn instead of staying stuck in bitterness. Eventually, the heartbreak that once felt like the end of the world becomes a turning point. The thing that broke you down becomes the thing that built you up. And not because of time, but because of how you used that time. Because you did the work, you asked the hard questions, you let yourself feel the weight of it, and you kept going anyway. So no, time won't heal everything, but perspective will. And it starts the moment you stop asking, why did they leave? And start asking, what did I learn about myself through this? That's when everything changes. You gave them your energy. You gave them your affection. You gave them the best of you, your time, your vulnerability, your attention, your heart. And now you're standing in the aftermath of that love, wondering what to do with everything that's left. That ache you feel, that emptiness, it's not just from missing them. It's from the parts of yourself you handed over and forgot to reclaim. And that's where we start. That's where the healing begins. Not with trying to get over someone, not with numbing the pain, not with trying to be fine before you're ready, but with this quiet, powerful decision to give all that love back to yourself. You see, we've been taught that self-love is some vague idea. something fluffy, soft, easy. But real self-love is not always pretty. It's not candles and long baths and travel photos with captions about healing. Sometimes self-love is brutal honesty. It's sitting down with yourself and saying, I've been neglecting the most important relationship in my life, the one I have with me, because here's the truth. The reason you feel so lost after a breakup is because your identity got tied to them. You made them your emotional home. And when they left, or when you had to let go, you felt like you lost your center. That's what hurts so much. Not just the absence of the person, but the absence of you with them, the you who loved, who gave, who showed up. And that version of you, that's still there. You didn't lose your ability to love. You didn't lose your capacity to feel deeply. You didn't lose your magic. You just misplaced it. You gave it all away and forgot to keep a little bit for yourself. So now, the work is to start giving that love, your love, back to the person who deserves it most, you. That means showing up for yourself in moments you want to disappear. That means speaking kindly to yourself in the silence when no one else is around to remind you that you matter. That means rebuilding trust with yourself after maybe ignoring your gut or abandoning your standards just to keep someone who couldn't meet them. Self-love isn't passive. It's not a reward you get after healing. It's an active practice, especially in your lowest moments. It looks like setting boundaries not to push people away, but to protect your peace. It looks like saying no when your people-pleasing self is screaming yes just to be liked. It looks like choosing yourself even when it would be easier, so much easier, to chase closure, to chase validation, to chase someone who walked away from what you were offering. And yes, you will miss them. Yes, you'll have moments where you want to go back, where the comfort of what was feels safer than the uncertainty of what's next. But remember this, love is not proven by how much you suffer. Love is proven by how much you grow, how much you're willing to expand through the pain instead of shrink because of it. So don't apologize for how deeply you loved. That's not a weakness. That's your gift. But now you get to give that gift to someone else, not to the next person who walks into your life, but to you. You get to learn how to enjoy your own company again, to take yourself on a walk, not to distract from the silence, but to enjoy the quiet, to build a life so full and rich and exciting that anyone who comes into it has to add to the magic. You're no longer giving them the job of creating it. And when you start to do this, when you start pouring back into yourself, you'll notice something strange and beautiful. The pain doesn't vanish overnight, but your relationship to it changes. It's no longer a weight dragging you down. It becomes a marker of where you've been, not a definition of where you're going. You'll stop waking up wondering what they're thinking. You'll stop checking your phone hoping for a message. You'll stop making their absence mean something about your worth. Because now you're full. You're whole. You're learning every single day that you are capable of giving yourself everything you once begged someone else to provide. And look, there will still be days when it's hard, when memories hit you in waves, when the ache sneaks up on you without warning. But those are not setbacks. They're reminders. Reminders that you loved bravely, that you lived fully, that you dared to hope and feel and care. And now you're daring to do something even harder. You're daring to rebuild from the inside out. That's real healing. That's what turns heartbreak into growth. Not time, not distractions, but this relentless, intentional decision to come home to yourself. So if you're still hurting, if you're still replaying moments in your head, wondering what you could have done differently, pause, breathe, And remember, the person who deserves your love the most right now is you. Let this be the moment you stop chasing what left and start choosing what remains. You. Your next chapter doesn't start when they come back. It starts when you decide to move forward. Let's just sit with that for a second. Because I know what it's like when you're stuck in that place where every part of you